name is Michael Coupe. I'm the co-founder and chief customer officer at Nerdwise. And today we are very fortunate to be hosting Adam Gladsden, who's the CEO of Broad Street Labs. So Adam, welcome to this episode. And if you could, maybe in a few words, tell me a little bit about yourself and Broad Street Labs.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Michael. Thank you for having me. Adam Gladsden, I'm the founder and CEO of Broad Street Labs. We are a cyber risk management firm focusing on cybersecurity services and cyber insurance for small and mid-sized businesses in regulated industries. So we work with companies from sole proprietors up to about 250 in headcount in financial services, legal services, healthcare, retail, manufacturing, those sort of industries. And really, it's an opportunity to bring both education and cybersecurity products and services to small companies to help them out.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much, Adam. And could you tell me who is or who are the best partners for Broad Street Labs? Like, who are the type of clients that you guys service?
Yeah, really, it's anyone that deals with privacy data within their business. And that's why we go after regulated companies, because clearly from a compliance and regulatory perspective, they have to meet certain standards. But even companies that don't have to meet those standards, that just have personally identifiable information, that have sensitive privacy data, whether it be credit card information, emails, addresses on their customers. So it can be everything from a blogging service, that someone might have, all the way up to a healthcare provider or a law firm and in that realm. So to us, the ideal is really kind of the sort of company that has an awareness of the security data that they need to protect. They don't necessarily have the staff on hand to help protect that data or to build in the policies and procedures to do that. So we can come in and really fill that gap, as I mentioned, both from education, but also with the services and solutions that we have.
I could be wrong here, but my gut tells me that with the pandemic and the heightened remote workforce, that whether it's in education or healthcare, that you guys have maybe become a little bit more busier. Have you seen an increase since the pandemic occurred where people are now wanting to reach out to you and learn more about cyber risk assessments and cyber insurance and cyber attacks? It's something that we're all very familiar with from the 90s and early 2000s, but now I believe we're really in the trenches, living and breathing it. So can you tell me a little bit what that experience has been like?
Yeah, well, no doubt across the board. I don't think you can go a single day without hearing a news story about some sort of breach, whether it's the healthcare services, whether it's A-list law firms and stuff like that, dealing with celebrities. I mean, nobody's really immune for it, but I think what's really been illuminated is the need in those small markets. So much more of these ransomware attacks and things like that have become so much more prevalent based on availability, lack of technical expertise that's needed to pull off these sort of extortion scams. So there's no doubt that we've had a lot more conversations with small businesses that really want to understand more, that need to understand more. That's been really beneficial to us as a company, but more beneficial to our clients, because really it's at the end of the day, it's protecting a business, it's protecting a livelihood. For a lot of these small companies, they are one and the same. They're supporting families and everything at home. And so the smallest sort of attack based on lack of education and lack on fundamental security policies, procedures, and technology solutions could most likely prevent these sort of things. And so we've had a ton of great conversations. And obviously, as a business, it's about your bottom line and everything else and your own viability. But we get just as much pleasure as a company and personally for me, helping these companies out, just giving them the education that they need to understand where they're vulnerable.
Yeah, because I don't think it's going anywhere. Whether you're working remotely now because you were forced to, or if it was just going to be part of the natural work lifestyle balance, technology, computer, cyber risk, it's going to be embedded in our DNA for the foreseeable future, to say the least. So.
Yeah, and the remote workforce in this sort of environment in some way is going to exist in perpetuity here. I think we're seeing the fundamental shift in workforce and that transformation in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, because how do you protect some of that data that was typically stored in this secure Fort Knox vault at home at the headquarter base, but now you're all enabled to work at your own home, wherever it is that you might be. You could be in California, New York, Indiana. You're not going to a brick and mortar office, but you still have the same role and responsibility to fulfill. And there's data that goes along with fulfilling those roles and responsibilities.
And that's where so much of the training comes into play now, which is less of a compliance function that it served in the past, where it was something everyone just had to have a checkbox, but now it needs to be ongoing. companies need to be able to convey best practices to their employees of how to handle data at home, which devices you can be on, how you should be using those devices. Where in the past, it was an every once in a while sort of thing that might be a piece of paper that they would sign. Well, now it has to be live.
Yeah.
It's a living, ongoing cadence sort of training.
Yeah.
It's going to continue to evolve.
Yeah. So it's no longer a want, it's a need.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Big time.
I'm sure you had an influx of inbound leads coming your way because there has been such a higher demand here in the past, say, 6 to 8 months. But how do you go about in finding new partnerships or new clients to work with you at Broad Street Lab? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. Both on the client development side, on the partner side, word of mouth referrals are key. And whether it's using past relationships and leveraging those, but most effective has been social media channels, and in particular LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been huge for us in general, but certainly during the pandemic, as the face-to-face and everything becomes much more challenging to be able to build and forge those relationships that way. So much more happens now online, as we would expect. But what's been interesting, though, is the way the referrals have been coming through. You establish first level connections with some people, and just by brand awareness of what you're doing and your content that you're putting out there, all of a sudden referrals start coming in. If someone needs cyber insurance, if someone needs cyber protection services along those lines, now they know someone. And with small businesses, so much more so, I think, than the mid-market and large enterprise, small businesses are so referral based that once you have someone in an industry that just knows of someone that they can refer, it doesn't even have to be someone that you're referring that they've done business with. It's just, hey, this Broad Street Labs happens to be in this space, right? They put out some good content. You might want to contact them. They can give you some more information. So it's been hugely beneficial for us.
Cool. And if you want to do things at scale, have you done anything to try like email marketing or hiring SDRs internally? If so, can you tell me a little bit about that experience?
COVID's been a great time for experimentation for us to try out different channels.
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn was always there. That's been kind of our bread and butter. We've gone out to email marketing automation. Nerdwise has been a great help for us. They were a first step in email marketing automation, and the ability to not only step through that process, but help educate and understand how marketing automation works and what kind of results you can expect have been excellent. So that's been a great progression for us. We've also done automation within social media itself, which has been really effective. One of the challenging parts is, so how do you kind of grow and scale that network on LinkedIn? Because doing personal notes, takes a lot of time, and to look up someone's background and everything. So figuring out the right strategy and messaging that kind of resonates across the board, just to establish a base level connection, and then to reach out and further that relationship has been huge. So using automation software in that realm with LinkedIn. And it doesn't have to be pricey. There are some really cost-effective solutions out there that are less than $20 a month that really do the job. And they've been great. So for other small companies, that's a nice boon if you're looking to kind of ratchet up what you can do on social media. And as well with content and brand awareness. So in terms of building that out, automation also works great there. As long as you have the content that you can put out, whether it's using a Hootsuite or Publer is what we use to be able to kind of schedule out your content and get yourself out there, has been really helpful too.
Excellent. And I like one thing that you said there around messaging, and I got to ask you about that. How important is the messaging? And the second part is, when you're sending these messages, do you create like lengthy novels, or do you keep it kind of short and sweet? What is the best practice that you've come to find that is producing results for you when it comes to messaging? It could be LinkedIn, it could be email marketing, but let's just keep it to those two realms.
The messaging is king in this, and we've seen this working together with Nerdwise, that you have to try out different messaging, and you have to have the analytics behind it to understand what's resonating with your market and what's not. So it's a matter of changing up your messaging, being in tune with what those changes are and how it affects the feedback coming from the market. So in general, it's absolutely huge. I keep it short and sweet. Shorter is better. I think as long as you are doing something that is both complementary, and something relatively specific. It doesn't have to be spot on specific to someone, but to just, to show that, hey, you've taken one extra step, at least in looking at them. And even though it might be an automated, message with most can pick up on, there's still a reason why you reached out to that individual, right? And as long as you can get that initial connection, that's your opening then to follow up with that individual and have that conversation and start building that relationship. So I think shorter is better. Nobody wants to really read a novel. Everyone's got a really short attention span these days. And especially even as if we weren't inundated with data in the digital age now, COVID has just taken that to the next level as everyone is just online all the time.
Yep.
Right. So I think it's even much more challenging and much more important to get your messaging right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like there's three maybe core parts to it. Identifying who the decision maker is that we should be getting in front of, knowing the value that you're going to be providing or delivering, and then some of the credibility, which is going back to your references, your case studies, your logos of sorts, for that gives you a little bit more skin in the game. It's like, hey, we've done this well, and I'm telling you this is what we've done, and this is who we've done it with, to kind of showcase that value to a higher level. So
yeah. And we've done it with email marketing. I've done A/B testing even with my intro messaging on LinkedIn. Yeah. And there are clear differences between what people respond to. And you can clearly look at your number of connections and even the feedback and how people perceive it. And so much of LinkedIn is about perception, right? They don't have too much to go off of except your employment history, your profile, some of your content. It's all around that personal brand. So on LinkedIn, you've got both. You've got a professional brand and a personal brand, right? Both on LinkedIn, but in a different way than you would see on an Instagram or a Twitter or something along those lines, right? Because it's almost you as an individual professional and then you as your business. So you've got both of those. So it's important and it can be done effectively.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're completing somewhat of like an ecosystem as you strategically approach social media and your outbound efforts. Like you have your email marketing that's running at scale. You have your own process and system implemented for connecting on LinkedIn, to sending those messages, to maybe running some retargeting campaigns on LinkedIn or Facebook. So can you tell me about maybe some of your best practices for how you are approaching prospects? Because as much as I want to believe that I can call one person and get them on the phone or send one email and get them to correspond and engage with me, typically that doesn't seem to happen. But can you tell me a little bit about how you further nurture those leads down the pipeline to a demo discussion or discovery call, and how many touches that you typically go through before you give up or move on?
I think there's two flavors here. So there's your first flavor, which are those leads that come through on the referrals and stuff like that. They're a little easier, and those are going to go through that sales cycle a little quicker because there's a personal establishment there within that relationship, right? So those tend to go a little quicker. The challenge really is for those that you don't have those relationships with, and the success I've seen really is in kind of that multi-channel approach to be able to use LinkedIn, email. I just started doing texting as well, which is more of a generational response, I think, than anything. I think that you have a certain segment, really those probably up to about 40 to 45 that seem to respond to those very well. Others, you just don't get the response. So I think there's a generational component to that. But texting has become such a normalized format for us, probably even as much, if not more so, than email. So generationally, that's another avenue. But you have to work all of them in tandem, right? You have to spread them out effectively with the right messaging, spreading them out effectively, and really hitting on the right pain points and solution sets. Again, it should be less about you as an individual, you as a company, and more about your target customers, right? So the better you can cater that messaging to them, right, and do it in a multi-channel way, so that even if they respond or open up an email, right, that you sent to them, even if they didn't necessarily respond, hey, there's an opening there, reach out to them on LinkedIn. Try and hit them up there and say, hey, you make that connection. I sent you an email recently. Perhaps we can jump on a call and discuss X, Y, and Z, whatever it is about their business that you're going after. But there's that way to use the different channels effectively. Any one in silo, you'll have some, with repetition, first of all, there's got to be a patience there. You have to understand that these things do take time. So I think for some that are new to the email marketing game, if the expectation is you're going to come in and you're going to do a campaign for a month or two, and all of a sudden you're going to see all this new business, I just don't think that's the reality. The reality is you need to get those reps in. You need to establish yourself. You need to make sure that the message is getting to them. That's another thing too. So that's where Nerdwise was a huge help, just understanding in terms of how email marketing works, how to avoid spam folders, right? To make sure it is getting in front of them. And our numbers were fantastic to be able to see that. And then, have the data, have the analytics behind it. There is so much data that's available via software and or otherwise to be able to look at what is effective and what is not, so that you'll learn which channels and really what sequences work. Maybe you lead with LinkedIn and then go to email marketing with certain customers and certain targets. Maybe you start with the email marketing and go to LinkedIn, go to a phone call, right? So as long as you're kind of working all three in tandem and doing them at a respectable cadence, I think that's an important point.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants, you need to differentiate yourself. And the way to do that is to be professional, be respectful, and show respect for both their time and the interest in their business.
Yeah. Plus, if you're prospecting folks, it's always interesting to me whether you're doing paid advertising or outbound email marketing at scale. People just want to focus on the things that are going to collect new blood and more credit cards and new opportunities. But when you do those things at volume and at scale, you got to think organically where people are going to. They're going to go to your website. They're going to go to your LinkedIn company profile. They're going to go to your LinkedIn personal page, and they need to see the brand awareness there. They need to see the client success stories, the testimonials, the referrals, the webinars and workshops that you are being a thought leader and a pusher and a mover and a shaker in. Those things all really matter to complete that ecosystem. Because if you're just doing one, it's a little shaky or sandy. You got to really do all things really well. And if you're a sole proprietor and you can do it, great. If you're a big corporate, Fortune 500 company, you got that internal marketing and sales team to help you, great. But if not, you could always maybe leverage someone like a Nerdwise to come in and build that system and that engine for you, because it does take many avenues and many efforts to create that success. It's not just, great organic content, one great website. You've got to do things really well on various platforms and do that consistently.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point, especially with a company like Nerdwise, that you can help companies to still be competitive. Even if you were much smaller, you can still go out there and build different marketing campaigns and strategies that can still compete with mid-markets. Yes, you don't have the budgets of large enterprises to be able to do, the print, the direct mail, the specific email campaigns, the sophistication that they might have. But to be honest, depending on your market, of course, so you caveat that, but people are looking for value. Mm-hmm. Right? People want that value. And it's not necessarily the shiny objects and everything that comes with that. And that's where that messaging is so important, right? In terms of building that perception and building that trust, which can be done via the right channels and showing that level of respect that we talked about. And if you can do that, you're competing on level playing ground with everyone else.
I really think that technology has lowered the cost it takes to compete with some of the big dogs. And as long as you understand the technology that you can leverage and the best practices and the process and systems that you incorporate and implement, like those types of high level activities will bring you to the next level of success. So that's really cool. Well, we got a couple more minutes here, and I want to at least give you a chance to share maybe anything about yourself or the business that maybe people don't understand about your products and your services at Broad Street Labs. So, maybe for a couple minutes, you can share, some of the things that you want people to definitely recognize when they're speaking with Adam or working with Broad Street Labs, or maybe just something in the world of like cyber risk assessment. I'm going to let you steal the floor.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. So I mentioned earlier, so much of what we do is around education. So it's not only educating the client about what threats and vulnerabilities they have as small businesses, but also the product and services that we have. Cyber insurance in particular is one area of explosive growth that most small companies either doesn't know exists or don't understand how it operates and how it functions, right? So I come from the cybersecurity world. We build our business with cybersecurity professionals kind of coming into the insurance world to fill that gap that exists. And so, yeah, it's very important for companies to understand that when you're building a cyber risk strategy and you're looking at cybersecurity, you need to look at both protecting yourself financially, which is where cyber insurance comes into play, and also how you're protecting your company and its assets with cybersecurity services and solutions. And for a lot of small and mid-sized companies, they need to understand that it doesn't have to cost an exorbitant amount of money. You don't need large enterprise budgets to be able to effectively thwart a lot of attacks. Nobody's going to be 100% safe, not even large enterprises, obviously, with the amount that we see with these sort of attacks. But you can put those foundational layers in place to help protect yourself. And then with the right combination of the security services and the insurance, you're now insulated, so that the mindset of cyber resilience, that an attack will happen at some point to your business, you're now protecting yourself from that inevitability, right? Financially, you're protecting yourself, and at least you have the basic mechanisms in place, whether it be backup, whether it be endpoint protection, whether it be security awareness training, which really is primary. These are all the sort of services that we offer. We built a business model deliberately because it's what we don't see in the marketplace a lot. It's one or the other. You have cyber insurance companies, and they're promoting the fact that this is all you need. You have cybersecurity companies that promote their services, but really they need to coexist. That's how you build a comprehensive cyber protection, and it doesn't have to break the bank.
Yeah. And I think this goes back to maybe some of our early conversations where I love how you guys take a proactive approach instead of reactive. It's just so much better to be ahead of schedule to a degree or ahead of these situations. And I think this is something that maybe I stole from you and maybe you took it from someone else, but like the only security is knowing there's no like true security, you know,
Absolutely.
something along those lines. I don't know if I'm beating that up too much, but there's something with that type of motto and that philosophy, right?
Yeah, it's being comfortable with uncertainty,
There
right?
you go.
We're living in uncertain times,
Mhm.
right? The only certainty is uncertainty,
Right.
and so getting comfortable with uncertainty is the name of the game. Small businesses, and that's the biggest challenge that we have, is that most small businesses feel that it doesn't pertain to us. We're a very small company. We're a mom and pop shop. Why would any sort of cyber criminal even be interested in us? And it's the realization that they're not. They don't care about you or your company. All they care about is your data, which is easily accessible, and that can be sold because it has value on the black market, right? So, and that's where the notion of privacy data comes into play. So any company that deals or stores any sort of privacy data, unless you're literally dealing off the back of a truck with, boxes and paper and literally handing them back and forth to people, those are probably the only fully protected people or companies nowadays. But everyone is susceptible. It's interesting in being proactive. We've really helped companies even with their sales, and people say, well, how does that work? So much contractual obligation exists now within contracts that you have to carry a certain number of cyber insurance, or that you need to show evidence of a security program. And companies are losing sales because they are behind the curve. They don't have their due diligence done. They don't have the planning and control in place with those mechanisms. And so we can help shorten sales cycles because, like you mentioned about proactivity, get these things done early, right? Have these things buttoned up. Now you flow through your contracts with your clients and you make sure you get your sale.
Wonderful. Well, Adam, I want to thank you for these past 30 minutes. Is there any way that people should try to get in touch with you, a best way to get in touch with you that you want to, at least leave that message and let them know how they can, engage with you, whether it's LinkedIn, email, maybe checking out the website? What's the best way people can get in touch with you?
Certainly, I'm very active on LinkedIn. Michael, I have my name and everything available for everyone. You can go to our website, bslcyber.com. You can reach me personally at adam@bslcyber.com. Again, we do free consultations. We're available for any questions that companies have regarding anything cyber related. So we're here to help.
Awesome. Well, Adam, thank you so much for the time. Everyone who's watching this, please feel free to subscribe to our channel here at Nerdwise. Make sure you like us, make sure you follow. And if there's any questions, you could always lean on us and we'll be happy to help out. But Adam, it's been a pleasure having you sit down with me for these past 30 minutes. And I don't take it lightly. I really appreciate all your time and efforts here and just speaking with me today. You did a great job.
All right, man. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Take care.